congrats for the exhibition, first of all. Second, I wrote down some questions, some, I think, interesting points within this framework of identity. And meanwhile, we can also talk about the process of the exhibition, but my questions would be a bit more abstract in terms of these topics. So I stumbled upon this article by Boris Groys, which was published on eFlux Notes 2 days ago. The title is The Others and the Sames. And it's really short but very interesting article, and he writes about the exact questions I think this exhibition is also investigating. And there is a sentence which I would like to start with and ask what do you think about that? Because I think one of the important questions when it comes to identity, representations of identities and identity politics in art, is how the individual is also connected to a community. And I was curious to know more about your opinion on this relationship. And Groys wrote that, and I quote, "Today, identity is understood not as something that identifies a particular individual, but rather as something that this individual shares with the members of a community to which they belong." So, yeah, I think that would be an interesting starting point to ask you, what are your opinions on that? The relationship between the individual and the community when it comes to identity questions. And I don't know the order, but maybe the curator could start first and talk a bit about also how you relate to these questions as curator.
First of all, thanks to the Austrian Cultural Forum for making this possible. My name is Martin Baasch, and I created this exhibition together with Christian Kugler. Unfortunately, cannot be here tonight because he has this great open house at Budapest Art Quarter from tomorrow on. And we've been visiting the Budapest Art Quarter this morning, and there's still a lot to do for the opening tomorrow, so he can't be with us tonight. But first of all, it's not curated by me only, but it's also in dialogue with Christian Kugler. When the Austrian Cultural Forum invited me about a year ago to work on this question of identity and identity politics, Christian and I kind of started with those very popular discourses on nationalism and national identity, and how identity politics are very much used to more or less exclude certain people or kind of include a certain in-crowd, and how identity moved away from the individual to a more bigger political instrument of also propaganda and how to exclude things. But over this year of talking and Christian inviting me to Budapest, in a way we started with very confrontive positions and artists and rainbow flags and spray paint and starting the riot. But then over the year in this discussion and also discussion with the artists, we more came to individual positions, more fragile positions, which are not so straight in the face, but kind of work on those questions, on those debates, but from a very personal perspective. And we chose 6 international artists. It's an international project. It's not only Hungarian and Austrian artists, but also an artist from Ukraine and an artist from Romania. Who kind of we try to put in a dialogue through media, through material, through topics, and provide kind of a surface for discussion. And also this evening should not be about me as a curator talking, but we got the artists here. So at that point, I will keep it that way and maybe hand it on to you and how you relate to that question. Lotti's on my left. Maybe I hand it on.
I try to remember the quote, but I think it says something about the relation between the individual to certain groups or communities, and I think like identity is something what is somehow like a construct which is giving us like certain or like is ordering us into certain categories. Like the first thing is when I'm born, I get like the category like female or male, like these 2, and I think somehow so we are attributed to a like identity which we try to queer or to change or to which is like, to empower us over this identity. But on the other hand, we can also use the community to organize and to help each other. I think it is also really important. So community, I think it is like, it has these two phases. It's not just like this one phase or this one side, or
Well, for me, I always connected very much to this theme of identities. From my personal point of view, I'm originally an actress, and so you make always the experience that someone gives you a kind of special identity, and you make also the experience that your body, how it looks like, that it fits always into a role or not. So this was the starting point when I started to think about what it is about identities and about my identity, and how can someone, or in this case me, how much do I have the power to be the creator of my own identity, or how much am I dependent on the others? And it's always this field of tension.
Yeah, I would have a response to that, but Eszter, if you want to add something.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, and I think I have a connection there maybe that also, like from my point of view, I'm also interested in climbing out of those boxes, or just and only by observing people and observing myself. So I'm trying to observe happenings without any preconceptions and recognize feelings that I can identify with, but identity in a way that it creates boxes, like you said, is something that it's interesting to challenge or to change, or I don't know.
And I think all of the positions in the exhibition, they're kind of starting with very dominant discourses and very, very harsh and authoritarian, being seen, being read, being categorized, and take these given discourses which surround us all and kind of undermining it or deconstructing it or working against it. Kind of, maybe we should do that in advance. Nadja's work is the one over there. I don't know if you had time to walk through the exhibition. Yes. This video work where a female body is struggling with this image of a banana, because a banana is never just eating a banana
peel.
A banana peeling a banana is not only being a banana. And Lotti Brockmann's work are these lollies there of heroic male statues in public space, which surround us. We go into the city and we have all these male monuments of heroic nature. And Eszter's work is the video installation back there, which is kind of dealing with questions how the surrounding space is kind of entering and shrinking and glitching our bodies. So in a way that we are always dealing with a dominant view that we have to work against or have to work with or have to kind of challenge.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what when I was preparing, or what I saw from the exhibition, is exactly these kind of aim to deconstruct these categories or these dominant narratives. But it's also, I think, interesting to see that you can look at identity as those parts of ourselves which we are born with, or which are so-called, or as also Gross is writing in this text, that natural identities, basic things which we were born with, or so on. And then it's also a question of learned and new identities. And then this is also connected to the notion of fluidity, which is also visible in the exhibition, like literally with sugar just like dissolving. And I was curious to ask you, what do you think of these more like those kind of identities which you take on during your life, which can change, which are these, it's not like a really good word, but more like artificial identities in a way that you can on your own dismantle and recreate. And this is, again, goes back to this question of how you relate to a certain community and how through a certain identity you create these like new communities. This is not like a really clear question, more like a comment, but I think there's this tension. What you mentioned also, that to avoid being put in these categories, you also create new identities and more fluid and less structural ones. Or maybe everybody, I mean, yeah.
What like is the like a big topic in my work is the fluidity of the statues, which are like normally in a really like stable or timeless material. They are like out of stone or out of what is it, bronze? Like this metal
Bronze, yeah.
bronze, yeah.
Because I don't know if you know, can all these lollies, they are Sigmund Freud's face and Goethe's face and Schrödinger and Rubens, like these people who kind of create a canon or kind of
and which are like present in the Viennese public space, and like the material is like really has its own agency. So it is like somehow like the identity of my objects, or like I put them into being a lollipop or like into an object, but they have their own agency through the material, which is connected to the conditions of the space. And this is a really important aspect, because I think all these lollipops are not individuals. They are always like situated in a context which is created by everyone who's here in the space, and also created by the institution. And so maybe this is first of all everything.
Well, I'm not sure about the question.
The question was more like a comment, but something to think of. This, can we say that there are certain identity types we are born with, and then there are certain ones which we create during our life? And it's also, I think, interesting that these days you can identify with so many things, and you can create all these different subgenres or groups of things. You can be I don't know, you can identify yourself as a cat person whose main identity is that they love cats and so on. So that's why I brought in the notion of fluidity and much more flexibility. But then again, what you said in the beginning, and I will also have a question on that, this like leftist critique on identity politics is coming into the picture, that if everything can be an identity, then what is left, or what is this difference between the, that this was a question.
Okay. Well, I think it's for yourself. You have always the opportunity to play with your identity, but the problem, I think, for me, is the kind of problem that you're always dependent on the others if they are able to accept that. So I think also this work we've done together with my performance group, because my work is based on a performance, and there I play with different identities and different costumes, and it's kind of hard to find out what I am in this moment, really. So there's also a little kind of secret, and for me, in the performance, it was very important that I can say, now I stop. Now I stop with that what I'm doing at this moment. Yes, and so it was a kind of play with how can I, in front of the audience, be my own my own creator of myself also.
For me, I think this debates between the identity people and the leftist critique, I think it's very interesting, and I have not read many things, but what I think is that somehow, so for me, I try to. Or what comes to me as a conclusion is that somehow I think when you think of identities or categories, you are thinking of these preconcepts. So, for example, if somebody is a cat person or something, it implies that there are already people thinking a lot of things about cat people or queer or even whatever, so I really want to challenge that in my work and in my way of thinking. And
These stereotypes.
yes, so I am trying to, since years, my project is always different, but what is a common line or main thing is to somehow try to purely observe, which is of course impossible because I have my own preconcepts, but I really like to play with that thing that I just want to. So this is why I started to look at old paintings, old portraits, and of female, very very nicely dressed female portraits, because before I only watched those beautiful garments and the whole thing and how it is really nicely painted and all that, but since I discovered that they have actually expressions on their faces, or I can project or connect somehow with some expressions, I think it's a whole different. It's a new thing for me to actually concentrate on whatever I see without any identities or categories or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's my position in this.
Can I
sure.
add something? I think your metaphor, like your example with this cat person and the conception of a person is really, really interesting. And I think it's also, for example, like I described my work before, and that it's like deeply relational to the space. And I think it's really, in the case of identity, it's really good to, when you say like you're like a cat person, like to see it and to listen to the person, but also not to like to find these small connections so that you can build like a collective and to find things you can learn from each other or things you can change together or help each other. I think this is really really important. Yeah.
It's also part of how things are predetermined. For example, Arnold Reinisch cannot be here, but we have this installation by Arnold, and this is kind of this pre-given concept. We are in the Austrian Cultural Forum, and of course there is a Bösendorfer piano there because it is national identity. This is the whole history of Austrian culture in one instrument. And in the beginning we said, no, we roll it to a corner and we cover it. We don't care about the piano. But then we can go, no, this is kind of the architecture itself, the institution itself brings in its own boundaries. And then Arnold came up, okay, why don't we use it? Why don't we make it into a living mushroom being or whatsoever? Because there's so many blind spots in this discussion about identity, and I think you have to address that. And then the other thing, what combines nearly all the work there's a kind of playfulness and a kind of these topics are really sometimes bitter and hard, but we try to bring together artists who have a certain humor or a certain playfulness to kind of we don't destroy that Austrian heritage, but we kind of work around it.
That would have been my next question, exactly. No, that I noticed that, and I think that's one of the strengths of the exhibition, that, and it's good that you also brought in playfulness, this process, that humor or irony or playfulness is strong part of all your strategies as artists. And even though there is this danger that, or more like, is there danger if you do that, and if you use in a way too much irony, then the topic or the subject itself lose its, seriousness, or you did intentionally use playfulness and humor to a little bit move away from this black and white notion of this discourse, which we mentioned already. So that will be my next question, which you already answered, that it is on purpose to invite artists to share this. And I wanted to ask all of you that what is the role you already answered, playfulness and humor means in your works. Like I know Eszter's works for like many years now, and there's always this very like bittersweet tone to it, which you smile, you laugh, but you can't really decide if you laugh with these people or you realize that you a little bit laugh at them, and then you find yourself in this uncomfortable position. And then, like in your case, it's also interesting that there's this interaction, the site specificity to work with the space, to invite viewers to, in a way, interact with the objects, and then again how
To lick them.
to lick them. How
Yeah, but this is kind of the thing. Maybe a generation earlier, they would say, let's blow up these monuments, let's destroy this monument, which is fair enough. But then, like, you're more or less one generation. Okay, no, let's try another strategy. Try to kind of deal in another way, to work with that and find other ways.
Yeah. So I was just curious, is this something which you can say it's like a recurring strategy in your practice to use these kind of humorous interventions and positions, or it's more connected to this topic, or what do you think about that?
To be honest, I never thought about this.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think about this and my work, then it's the same as working with humor. Is for me the same kind of surviving, because you can, of course, be very angry, and this world is so ungerecht, unjust, and yes, and so for me it's a kind of survival to keep my humor, and I think you see this also in my work.
Yeah, no, I agree exactly. That it is a survival strategy in a way.
Yeah, I think in my work, I can't say that every work is totally humorous in my, like what I did in the past, but I think the works I feel most connected with has like a humorous aspect, and I really like this. In one hand, it's like for me really fun to do it, and I find like every time again like a new fascination of my work when I still can laugh about it, or it's still always really exciting to see who will like my work and who will just watch, and find also fun in watching another person licking the lollipops, and I think it is an interest also in kind of like a different kind of mediation or knowledge transfer, because like knowledge is normally transferred through, I don't know, text or talks or everything else, and in my work you somehow get in touch with the object, and it's like a oral kind of intimacy, and and another way of experiencing the artwork also. And I think it's like a really like generally I'm interested in this like effective things, as also like pop culture, like pop music, for example, and
I have the same thing or similar, that I never start a work in a way that it's part of the concept that it's going to be funny, but except now I'm working with laughter, but that's another thing. Now it's a change. but otherwise I always just realize that sometimes I laugh out loud in my studio or in front of my computer at an animation, and then I know that, and then I'm happy, and then I'm expecting it to become a good work. So somehow it just happens. But of course, if we think it over, it's somehow also being funny is also an act of critique, I think, against power or something. So it works, I think.
Yeah, and also the way to kind of to deal with these bitters. If we think about Kinshko Wede, who can be here tonight, which is kind of a work which is kind of very much dealing with trauma, with the Ceausescu era in Romania. So there is kind of a deep bitterness and a deep trauma in that. But in reenacting those scenes from the beginning to like this reenactment of Ceausescu himself, like going this way, she embodies this history, and she turns it around and she throws it out again in a way she's changing the memory or the way people deal with history. And so it's also over generations that people work around those topics and try to change our perception and also the way things are represented. I mean, a lot of works also talk about representation and who's representing whom, and who has the right to represent whom in which way, and how, as you said, how much power do I have in being read, in being represented, in being framed in something else, and how do I get in this position that I'm in control?
Yeah, you always like mention things which I would like.
I'm sorry.
No, that's great. That's how should I say? I'm happy because it means that in a way I figured out your intentions in a way, because I wrote down that in many of the works which we can see here, there is some kind of important relationship with the past and with history, or either like the big history or family histories or different kind of micro histories. And especially, yes, in Kinshko's work, when there is this like position of the third generation doesn't have exact or concrete memories of the things which happened, but tries to, as you said, embody these past events through her own body and understand what happened through that. And also this notion of intergenerational projects. It can be also, in a way, intergenerational in your works, like how to address these historical figures. Again, question of representation, how to deal with your past, how to deal with art historical references, with ideology, with discourses, which are all shaping the way we are, the way we behave. So that would have been my next question. That what is your relationship with the past, either in like historical or art historical terms, and how would you describe it how it affects you now in the present?
Well, I'm now about 54 years old, so I have a lot of past I can look behind, and for me, it's always the reference from the time where we didn't have in Europe these discourses about identities or who has the power, who is represented and who not. And it's always for me a kind of flashback, because in the 90s when I studied, there was nobody was talking about it, and it was kind of normal to find into some, how you say it today, these patriarchal power ranges.
Yeah.
And so this is my connection to the past and to now, and that's very, for me, it's very aufregend, exciting.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you also reflect on this like tension and this rupture when you start to think about the stuff. Yeah.
Yes, I like these lollipops are not my first sugar work. In the beginning, I started to work with sugar because I was really interested in how the development of nation state interacts with industrialization and colonialism, and there was already like a big interest in like historical narratives and the like knowledge canon, and which art has value, or which literature has value, and all these questions. And I always felt like not being part of this like value things, or not so and also not represented from a queer feminist perspective. But I think my work addresses not just like queer feminist perspective, also other categories as like race, gender, and class. Or like gender I already mentioned. So it is like a topic which is like a lot of people are dealing with, and somehow Vienna is the city which has a lot of like these big buildings and big streets and heroic statues, and you feel like in every building is so much power and so much hegemony also. And I would say that I'm not writing like counter histories. I more or less invite people to empower themselves, or to get in touch with this topic, and also to deconstruct this what is
masculinity
into a more fragile one.
No, yeah,
which is
exactly.
which is kind of obvious that kind of the statues and the street names, 95% of sets are male. 95% of the street names are male. There's this kind of how is the grid in which we work, and how dominant is that? And then climbing up there at night and stealing
during the day
and stealing their faces. And then yesterday we had the ambassador of Austria kind of kissing Sigmund Freud. Which is kind of a game changer, because then kind of he didn't really dare. It took you quite a while to make him kiss him, but this interaction, this moment where that then happened, it's questioning also the authority of an ambassador, of a legacy, of the nation state.
Yeah. I also want to add that the aspect of orality, like in history, like we have different values of our senses. So listening and watching are the like most like the dominance and hegemonic senses, if I can say it like this. And like the orality is like so connected symbolically to the speech, and to also like the thinkers maybe, but it is also like a sense which was like devalued in the past a lot. And this is also like an aspect of the work, I would say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think it's interesting that on one hand I agree, but on the other hand, with this like you invite the viewers to not only to lick but then to kiss, and then in a way like kissing is, so to say, kind of form of also identification with those people or these figures. So it's I think it's interesting that it's not the destruction, you don't want to destroy these things, but in a way you would like to question these authority figures through some kind of identification, through some kind of more intimate approach. So I think that's just an interesting thing.
But they melt, look, they didn't look like that yesterday.
And then
so you kind of deconstruct them with the kiss, I think,
that's
or
true.
with the lick. You make them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's sad. They look more sad after each kiss, right?
Yeah, the one over there is already grumpy a little bit.
Yeah.
It's also nice that there's a process in this exhibition that these male heroic, this is Goethe or was Goethe, whatever, tries to get fluid itself, and at the end of the exhibition will be gone. They just disappear and they just drip and the other thing, as you mentioned, kind of the smell of the room. Lotti produced those sculptures here, like down in the cellar. And if you enter the space, you smell this material of the sugar and the caramel. And again, sugar is a very colonial. We just know sugar as white sugar in boxes, but actually it has a long colonial history how it was exploited, and so the material itself holds its history of power regimes.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking that when you said, there is a clear feminist standpoint visible in the exhibition, I think it's great that even though there are very different backgrounds and standpoints, it's quite visible that these discourses around identity in all of your works are coming from, in a way, this constant questioning of either the patriarchal system or the heteronormative structures of society. So I think that's always good to see that. And you haven't worked before together, right? So this was the first time. And
Yeah.
And then there were some new commissions and some already existing work. So just, I think maybe it would be interesting to know more about the process of your collaboration as a last question.
Yeah, this became the thing when I was asked by the Austrian Cultural Forum to get into this bigger project, The Art of Being Me. I accepted that invitation, but first of all said, okay, I need a Hungarian partner, because who am I to create Hungarian art? I haven't been to Hungary much, so what do I know about the scene? And then they introduced me to Christian Kugler, who I know before through the Osztrák Festival. And actually, Christian took me around in Budapest, and we did a lot of studio visits and gallery visits, and been to the art quarter, and we've been actually walking. I just told that we've been actually walking through town quite a lot. I had blisters on my feet in the end, and Christian was kind of taking me out, because there was another thing that the Hungarian art scene that I was familiar with is an Hungarian art scene which lives in Berlin or lives in Vienna or lives in Lisbon, because so many people are leaving the country. And Christian made quite clear it's about the artists who are here and are working here, and we don't want to do an expert show. We want to do a show with artists who are working in Budapest and are close to that. And then Christian came to Vienna, and we did the same thing the other way around, or he came to Graz, to Steiermark, and so it developed in this dialogue. But all the artists. I mean, you knew Arnold before.
Yes.
But this kind of the others didn't know each other.
Yes,
the others didn't know each other before. So, but this is kind of another goal. I think we're very happy about that the group actually merges quite nicely, and people have a lot to talk about beside our curatorial content, because this is the idea of those platforms that we initiate an exchange, which is kind of goes somewhere else beyond this exhibition, and maybe something else is
hopefully
coming out of that. And
Yes.
this is not my role as a curator. I just do the platform, and then you do your network.